Hi, this is Michael Bliss, and we are here live at Denver Open Media, and we are with Blissfest Talks. And today we are talking with nonprofits, and we have Joyce Aubrey in the studio, and she has a nonprofit called Finding Our Voices. So could you tell us a little bit about your nonprofit and what it's about?
Our nonprofit is rather unique in that we work with a population that usually you don't hear about. They usually are very quiet about what they have experienced in their life, and that is sexual violation. In other words, we work with adults who have survived some sort of sexual assault, rape, or incest.
So will you tell us how you started Finding Our Voices and where Finding Our Voices is at today?
Finding Our Voices is primarily in Colorado Springs, although we do serve some other communities in the Front Range area. We started with the Rape Crisis Center called Tessa in Colorado Springs, and there was in 2007 a very small art show. And I attended that and was really excited about seeing how much art could do for survivors, because in my own experience I had used a lot of art for healing. So since 2008 I have been leading this organization, and we've had an art show every year, and we've become our own independent nonprofit, and we've added a lot of other programs as well as the annual art show.
So will you tell us a little bit about the programs that you run? Like in April, you have the annual art show, and then you also have some other things going on each month, like groups, women's support groups, men's support groups. So will you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Certainly, I would love to. The second Saturday in April, we sponsor an art opening of visual art, but we don't stop there. We started with just visual art, but it soon became apparent that poetry and song and dance and videography were important aspects as well. So we didn't want to focus just on visual art, but at our art opening, we have what we call performance art as well as the visual art. And the visual art usually stays up for the month of April, so the community has an opportunity to view it throughout the month. And the reason that we do this in April is because April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Yeah, and also, isn't it Denim Day in April too? Or when is
Yes.
Denim Day?
Denim Day is the last Wednesday in April, and that's not just a community or state or national event. That's an international event. It's very fascinating how this happened. Would you like that story?
Yeah, let's hear exactly how Denim Day got started.
Okay, in Europe, I believe it was in Italy, that a 17-year-old was assaulted by her driving instructor. And she did everything right, had the sexual assault exam, and the evidence was there, and the man was convicted. But at the time of sentencing, the judge said, "I'm throwing out this case," because the victim was wearing tight jeans, which means it had to have been consensual sex.
So last year for Denim Day, you did a fashion show where the ladies and men wore denim to the actual art exhibit in Colorado Springs. So will you tell us a little bit about that and how you felt about the overall, how the community kind of took that?
Okay, it was really fun because the women in the community where the sentence was thrown out protested so violently that the sentence was reinstated. And then throughout the country, we used denim and denim fashion shows on the last Wednesday of April to talk about the myths surrounding sexual assault. For instance, one myth is that there are a lot of false reporting, and there's been a great deal of research done on it because of that myth. And the truth is somewhere between 2 and maybe 8% of sexual assault reports are false and just someone being hateful. But the great majority are not reported. On the other side of that, an interesting statistic is that generally more than 20 years passes before a victim speaks out about their abuse. So that's why we have Finding Our Voices to work with people who have tried to deal with the aftermath of intimate violation on their own.
Yeah, I know when I was sexually abused at the age of 16, it was so hard for me to tell my parents. And I actually had a nervous breakdown because I was so scared and in so much fear and not sure what to do. And I think for men, that it's hard for anybody to talk about this. It's hard to open up about this. For women, it's 1 out of 3, and I have found out for men it is 1 out of 5. And for me, going through that at the age of 16, telling my parents, taking the guys to court, and then the guys only getting probation. Nowadays, I think things are changing with sexual abuse in the court systems. Do you know kind of some of the things they're working on?
I can't quote statistics because they're so varied, but there's still a lot of victim blaming. There's still somewhere between 1 and 10% of offenders ever see a day in jail or prison. There's still a lot of questions asked, like what were you wearing, why did you go there, were you drinking? And you know, rape is never the fault of the victim. It is a decision by the offender. And what we know today is that offenders groom their victims. The MO is usually to charm, and with charm to lower the defenses of the victim, and then to lure them. In many cases, drugs and alcohol are involved so that they can disempower their victim and create the crime. And the sad part is you were unusual in that you took your offenders to court. The majority don't. It is not just in the state of Colorado or the country of the United States. All through the world, rape is the most underreported violent crime.
Well, for me, that was tough. Being 16, being in high school, the men were in their 30s and early 40s, and so basically I wanted to crawl under a rock. I wanted to hide. I wanted to isolate, but it was driving me insane to hide this, and so I told my parents, and then we reported it. And so at the age of 16, I had to take him to court. I had to face him again, and that is really tough to face your perpetrator in court. And you know, going through all that, going through the stories again. And so after that, I stuffed it and never really talked about it. And then I remember seeing a flyer for Finding Our Voices in Manitou Springs. And right away, I picked up the phone, and then that's when I called you, and that's when I joined. I think that was probably 4 years ago?
It was 2013.
Yeah. And I just remember picking up the phone, and it was, gosh, like 2 weeks before your April art event, I believe. And that was a turning point in my life to actually open up. That was the first time that I got on stage and opened up to people about it, and I found my voice, and I noticed with Finding Our Voices, that's what it's about. So will you tell us a little bit about how others that are a part of Finding Our Voices, how you've seen change, how you've seen them find their voice?
I certainly would like to do that, and I really appreciate that you shared your story. because it is typical of so many things. You know, you isolated. We have people who are so agoraphobic they can't go out the door. They have someone do their grocery shopping for them. They have someone go to the laundromat for them. They don't participate in social life at all because they are so afraid of being triggered. We also have people who have eating disorders, people who are addicted to street or prescription drugs, and have relationship problems, because not only has your trust in other people been violated, but you don't trust yourself because you realize that you trusted someone who was not trustworthy. So you're all confused about who can you trust and where is it safe. It feels like no place is safe. So we try to provide that safe spot for people to share their stories, people to talk about their daily challenges in weekly support groups. We have weekly support groups for adult women and for adult men. And the men's group is actually Partners in Healing. So the men coming to it may either be a survivor or a partner of a survivor. Because let's face it, the loved ones of rape survivors are secondary survivors. They have a lot of the same challenges that the survivor does because they feel so helpless. They don't know what they can do to support their loved one who's going through so much trauma.
Yeah, and I also, you know, when I was in Colorado Springs before I moved to Denver, we were working on getting the men's group, and that is really tough to get men together to talk about this, and we ended up with a small group, and that was, you know, a really awesome experience to get the men together to talk about their experiences, because, you know, growing up, you know, I was told to be a man, you know, to don't talk about it, and it was
You're supposed to man up.
Man up.
Don't cry.
Yeah,
Don't.
and the pain and the emotion that I stuffed. I've had a lot of stomach problems. I turned to alcohol. I've tried other things to hide that pain. And now by opening up, by talking to, you know, to let it out, my health is so much better. My life is so much better. Doing the artwork, doing the art workshops. So will you tell us a little more about the healing process that you've seen by finding our voices?
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because people think that it is another myth about sexual violation, that the best thing you can do is pretend it didn't happen, sweep it under the rug and get on with your life. That doesn't work. Another myth is that you just need to turn it over to your higher power and let it go. That works after you've let yourself feel the anger and let yourself feel the pain. It doesn't work until you really let the emotions circulate through your body and be released. So it takes a lot of effort to let the pressure cooker go, you know, let that pressure out some way. And we do that in monthly art workshops. Second Saturday afternoon of each month, we do art workshops, and we do collage, and one time we even made bath salts. We do painting with different mediums. And we always try to do a little bit of a meditation or relaxation before we go into it. And the interesting thing about it is we do not ever talk about technique when we're painting, because the creative process is what heals, is what lets us get our emotions out. And it's these stuffed emotions that make us physically ill and give us mental health problems. So we've had some people say, well, you know, why don't you teach us how to paint flowers or teach us how to do portraiture? We have a fine art instructor who's been leading our art workshops for 5 years. She knows technique, but she does not teach technique in our workshops because it's about the process. Some people just crochet or knit, We've done clay projects. But whatever the process might be, it is focusing in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of the mental and physical pain that we give ourselves is because we're not living in the moment. We're letting the tapes of what happened in the past play in our mind, or we're dreading the future. But if we can get in the moment, then we have a chance to heal.
Well, and also through poetry, through journaling, through writing. And one of the workshops I went to was the dream board workshop.
Yes.
And what was amazing about that workshop is, I believe that was 2014, I hanged it up on our wall, and almost everything that I put on that dream board has come true. So I definitely believe in the power of positive thinking, the power of dreaming, the power of having those dream boards, and that really does help people that are in pain, and not just with sexual assault, but people that are going through a healing process, with domestic violence, with there's so many hurts and hang-ups in this life. And so that just completely helped me in my healing process to see that dreams can come true.
And we have an understanding of neuroplasticity of the brain, an understanding of epigenetics, so that we know now we can change the future and we can change our brains, we can change our responses. And we used to think that we didn't have any control over our thoughts, but we really do. And by doing the vision boards into a collage or a dream board, you're actually setting up what you want for the future. And it's interesting and amazing how that works, that if you really put it out there, those things oftentimes will just fall into place like dominoes.
And will you tell us, because you've known me for about 4 years now, and you've kind of seen my journey, would you tell the audience a little bit about what you've seen and the change that you've seen throughout these 4 years by being a part of Finding Our Voices? Because at one point, I was homeless.
That's right. Michael was homeless, and I let him couch surf for a few weeks, and he began to get stronger and stronger, and the next thing I knew, moved to Denver, and it's just been uphill ever since. It's been quite amazing to see that journey. And I got into this because in my midlife, really almost my senior citizen years, I had flashbacks to childhood abuse, and I had to walk away from the business that I'd owned for more than 20 years, from a marriage of 35 years, to hold on to my sanity and heal. And I feel like I've come full circle. I'm at peace with my Maker. I'm happy with my life. I'm contented. And I remember as a younger person wondering what contentment felt like. And so I want to give back to survivors who maybe didn't have the breaks I had, maybe didn't have the good therapists that I had when I was in crisis.
Well, and also bringing that whole thing up, you actually let a male come into your house, and you trusted me in your own home, which is a big step too, because we had to trust each other. And so that's a huge process right there, is to trust someone in your home that needed help. So how was that process for you?
Well, by then I was pretty comfortable and trusting my own tuition, which and you're saying having a man in the house, something that is difficult for many people to understand about me is that my childhood was unusual, maybe not, I don't know, but most people haven't heard about family trafficking, that families share little girls. And so I was assaulted by not only men, but by a woman as well. So I didn't trust anybody for a while. And once I came to trust my own self, we talked that the ability to self-determine we call agency. And once you get to the point where you have agency and you can trust yourself for charting your own course and trust your own intuition, then that's a big step towards a new way of determining yourself, a new way of defining yourself. Because a loss of self and a loss of self-determination is a lot of the angst that surrounds the aftermath of sexual assault.
Yeah. And so with Finding Our Voices, for your journey, how has this helped your journey with what you have been through?
What people see me as a very strong person, and of course they didn't know me 25 years ago when I was in crisis. And what I want to do is just carry the banner for others so that they know, that they can see that there is life after assault, there's life after flashbacks, and you can find peace. It's been a journey where I feel like I am where I need to be in this world right now, and I'm doing what I came here to do.
So will you give us some final thoughts about Finding Our Voices and also how people can get in touch with Finding Our Voices?
Certainly, our website is findingourvoicescs.org for Colorado Springs. So you want to remember it's plural, Finding Our Voices, cs.org. And there's a lot of information there. Michael helps us with that. And we have a Gmail account, fovartshow@gmail.com, and that's kind of comical now because we have retreats and art workshops and a lot of things in addition to the annual art event. And an important part of the annual art event is community advocacy, because people can see that these survivors aren't depressing. These are survivors who are inspiring, they are positive, and they are working towards healing and towards being all the best that they can be. So Finding Our Voices has this community advocacy program, and we have artists go out with their art and talk about this subject that is usually a taboo subject. We also have some professionally developed films that we can share called Pursuit of Truth, which is about the criminal justice system. And the other film is Boys and Men Healing, which was produced in Canada, and the Boys and Men Healing program is an international program now, and it's very effective in helping men heal. And one thing we haven't touched is that there's a lot of notoriety on the campuses and in the military, but their sexual assault is no more prevalent than in the general population. And something that's little known is that in the military there are more men who are abused than women.
Well, part of the reason why I do Blissfest is healing. It keeps my mind off of my past. It helps me move forward. Working with others, being a part of Finding Our Voices, being a part of all these other events that we're doing. The Finding Our Voices April art events, the workshops, the Blissfest, all the different events, the television programs that we're doing. So that's what I love is through the arts, we have healing, and that's what Finding Our Voices is all about.
Certainly is. And the Happiness Project tells us that like 40% of our happiness is genetics and 10% environment, but most of it is our own response to what happens in our environment and our own response to what our genetics are. So doing for others and being involved with others leads to more happiness. After your basic needs are met, more money doesn't do it. It's socialization is extremely important, and that's what we have in Finding Our Voices is socialization with creative activities.
So thank you, Joyce, for coming on the show. And this is Blissfest Talks. And we're so grateful to have teamed up with Finding Our Voices and been a part of Finding Our Voices for the last 4 years. And I've just been watching it grow and people grow. And that is the amazing part of the healing process is watching all this grow and healing. And that's what it's about. So thank you so much for being here.
I was pleased to be here. Thank you for what you're doing, Michael.